episode of the OSHDP Housing Talks. This would be our, I think, our 14th episode since we started in June last year. Again, we thank you. We thank everyone for your continued support. With special thanks to our advocacy partners, our World Home Depot Corporation, January's Holdings, Nippon Paint, and Power Track. Before we begin, may I ask everyone to please observe some moments of silence and offer our prayers for all the people affected by the pandemic.
Heavenly Father, Creator of all things, we humble ourselves before you and submit to your most holy will, especially during these trying times. We thank you for the gift of life, family, and friends. We ask pardon for our shortcomings and plead for more time to make amends.
We pray for the cure of the sick and an end to this virus. And most especially, we pray for the health workers, the doctors, nurses, and all those working in the hospitals who are putting their lives on the line for our sake.
We thank you for their heroic service, for their sacrifice to risk their lives for others, for their selflessness to take care of people as if they're a family of their own, and for their care and compassion to attend to the needs of patients at all costs. Protect them from the virus and embrace them with your love so that they will not feel afraid and alone as they carry out their duties.
We also ask for the mantle of your protection for the families of our health workers who have made the unselfish sacrifice of lending to us the pride of their families and most beloved ones.
And when this is over, we earnestly pray that you shower upon them all the blessings that they have bestowed on many, that their works continue to prosper, their goodness multiplies, and the happiness and joy that they've brought to patients return to them 100-fold.
We ask this through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Jervin, you're in mute.
Oh, I'm sorry for that. Again, good afternoon, everyone, and we welcome you to the OSHDP Housing Talks. Just a few house rules as we go through our program. Except those of our resource persons, our panelists, or the key officers of the organization, the participants' videos and microphones are muted by default. We'll be taking a virtual crowd chat later after the program. Please tell if you know anyone who are still in the waiting room or the lobby. Uh, Kindly tell them to reflect their real name on their handle or their account so we can easily identify and admit them in the room. Please listen to our speaker in the program. You may use the chat box when asking questions during the presentation so as not to interrupt the meeting mid-flow. During the open forum, you may use the reaction function in the Zoom app or the make click thumbs up. You may also use the raise hand function. Then wait for the host or the moderator to recognize you. When asking questions during the forum, please state your name, your affiliation, your organization, and the name of the person or speaker with whom you wish to address your question. Kindly observe proper decorum at all times. In today's housing talks, this would be like an online meet and greet with the new chairman of the House of Representatives Committee on Housing and Urban Development. He is the Honorable Jose Francisco Kiko Benitez. Welcome, Congressman Kiko.
Thank
He
you.
is also the representative of 3rd District of Negros Occidental. In addition to serving as a courtesy audience with him, with the chairman of the Committee on Housing, this occasion will also serve as a platform to update the public of the legislative agenda for the housing and real estate industry. Again, as we begin, may I acknowledge our National Board officers who are present in this room. Are starting off with our Chairman of the Board, Mr. Mars Mendoza, our National President, Mr. Gino Olivares, other officers of the board, Mr. Charlie Tan, Attorney Ryan Tan, Roman Perez, Fiona King, Rosabel Villanueva, Lawrence Alvarez, Cesar Wee, Fernand Imperial, Nicole Choa, Jovi Capa, and our Director Emeritus, Engineer Jefferson Bongat. Also, we would like to acknowledge all the representatives and presidents of our local chapters from North Luzon, Central Luzon, Barizon, Cebu, Bohol, Bicol, Davao, Northern Mindanao, Bukidnon, Pagadian, and Zamboanga. I think I saw in the participants, we are also joined by some members of the media from the Philippine Star and the Malaya Business Insight. Let's begin our program with our welcome message from our national president, Mr. Gino Olivares. Sir Gino?
Good afternoon, Congressman Kiko Benitez. Good afternoon, fellow board directors, guests, and event partners. A safe and prosperous new year to everyone. I am pleased to open the 2021 inaugural episode of the regular online forum of the Organization of Socialized and Economic Housing Developers of the Philippines, called the Housing Talks. It is our platform to keep our members and friends updated on housing issues. More importantly, by this, we are able to engage and discourse with the key industry players for clarity of housing programs and policies. Today is an auspicious moment as we are privileged to have a scion of an illustrious icon in housing to keynote today's event. We are honored to have Honorable Jose Francisco Kiko B. Benitez of the 3rd District of Negros Occidental. Of wide renown on his own, our guest has deep roots in housing. Being the youngest son of former Jose Jolly C. Benitez of the Ministry of Human Settlements, this was the time when human settlements were already on a ministry or department level. Of course, he will be more properly introduced after his opening remarks. Let me just say that he is the recently named chairman of the Committee of Housing and Urban Development of the House of Representatives. His elder brother is former Congressman Albi Benitez. It is also our honor to meet and greet with him today. 2021 is a year of new beginnings for us, as the COVID vaccine will soon be available to ease our way into our more active and more confident year ahead of us. I'm personally thankful for having everyone here today, as I am sure that we shall all overcome. Thank you and welcome everyone.
Thank you, Sir Gino. Now to formally introduce our guest speaker for today, may I call on our Director Emeritus, Engineer Jefferson Bongat. Sir Jeff?
Thank you, thank you, Jervin. I apologize if I don't have video. Medyo since last weekend, the internet is not stable in our area. I have 3 kids right now online doing classes. So, to the members of the board, good afternoon. Congressman Benitez, good afternoon. Honorable Jose Francisco Kiko Bantug Benitez, PhD, is the representative of the 3rd District of Negros Occidental. He is the chairperson of the Committee on Housing and Urban Development and sits in 11 other committees in the House of Representatives. Representative Benitez is the former president of the Philippine Women's University. He was assistant professor at the University of Washington, Seattle, and has taught various courses at Cornell University of Wisconsin-Madison, University of Asia Pacific, and PWU. For his extraordinary work and leadership in education, he received the award for Outstanding Contribution to Education in 2017 Asia's Education Excellence Awards. Dr. Benitez earned his master's and PhD in comparative literature, minor in Southeast Asian Studies from the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and his BA in comparative literature, summa cum laude, and English cum laude from Cornell University. Ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Kiko Benitez.
Thank you. Is it my turn now, Dervin?
Yes, Kong. Thank you, Kong.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Director Bongan. First, I'd like to start by saluting the members and officers of OSHDP, led by the chairman of the board, Mars Mendoza, and the president, Gino Olivares. No? Magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. Congratulations to OSHDP for the successful launch of this series of online forums. This is the 14th episode, I heard you say earlier. I think it's crucial that this kind of endeavors to educate the public and to keep ourselves updated of the ongoing, I would like to say, housing emergency, no? And to think of ways through which we can address the both immediate and longer term housing needs of the country. The pandemic actually has brought, I think, globally into strong relief the need for us to think through how we might deal with public spaces and the urban disparities in access and rights to the city, particularly of our urban poor. The pandemic highlights, in fact, for us specifically, our own country's housing crisis. As governments impose shelter-in-place orders and lockdowns to contain the spread of the virus, we need to ask, paano makapag-stay at home ang mga walang bahay? The pandemic does not only highlight homelessness, but also poor housing conditions in informal settlements in our cities. There is no adequate space or ventilation to enable physical distancing or quarantine or isolation and proper air circulation. There are no adequate facilities for sanitation and hygiene in general. Rapid urbanization has intensified competition for land in our cities, driving land costs to rise and making in-city housing unaffordable to low-income families. The lack of affordable formal housing in cities has forced many families to construct structures along waterways, along esteros, in idle government or private lands, none of which conform to sewage or fire safety standards. Many of them are prone to disasters. It is almost 30 years since the enactment of the Republic Act number 7279, a landmark law designed to address homelessness. But the housing problem is as bad as it was in 1992, if not, given our population growth, actually worse. How could the government possibly end homelessness when housing programs have consistently been severely underfunded? The average annual government spending on housing is a measly 0.74% of the national budget from 2010 to 2021. The backlog by 2022 is estimated to be greater than 6 million units of housing, with an annual estimated need of around 800,000 units. However, the sector has only produced around 778,000 units from 2016 to 2020, or over 4 years. An annual average of around 194,000 units out of the 800,000 we need to catch up with population growth, let alone catch up with the backlog of housing that we already have. So the government housing programs should be complemented therefore, by the housing production by the private sector. But as you all know, you are, after all, OSHDP, housing production is frustrated by increasing costs and increasing risks. You all know that to proceed to construction, a housing project will need 146 signatures, 78 permits from 27 offices, requiring 373 documents, so on and so forth. And the timeline for a housing project goes up to maybe 4 or 5 years before it actually really gets materialized. So it is no wonder that we produce less than a quarter of what we need to keep up with the needs of our population. So what is it that we need to do? We need to promote a more dynamic housing market. And our vision is to strengthen public-private partnership to ideally accelerate housing production, to make it at least come close to catching up to what the population needs. The government cannot do this alone. At the Committee of Housing and Urban Development in the House of Representatives, we recognize the vital role the private sector has in fulfilling the dream of every Filipino to own a house and a home. Home ownership is one of the top goals of Filipinos. 81% of Filipinos want to have their own house, according to NEDA. And home ownership is a visible representation of human dignity. But perhaps more importantly, it also becomes a marker of wealth creation and the entry of our fellow Filipinos into the formal market, and therefore provides them with real social mobility. But our work should not end with just promoting home ownership. Our efforts should not stop at just providing shelter, but building settlements that promote health, security, and productivity. We should think of building neighborhoods, building of communities with both the hard infrastructure of the buildings that are responsive to climate and environmental changes and pressures, but also with the soft side of resilient and empowered communities. Many of you are already doing this in your master planned or mixed-use housing projects, and we need to mainstream this further and ramp it up. In fact, what is now on second reading for approval on the plenary floor of the House of Representatives is the long-awaited on-site, in-city, and near-city resettlement bill, as well as the rental subsidy bill, both of which were primarily authored by Congressman Kit Belmonte of Quezon City. Last week, I filed House Resolution number 1468, precisely to fast-track construction of mixed-use housing for low-income families. To lower the cost of housing, we need to unlock idle government lands and utilize them for housing purposes. And to cross-subsidize low-income families, we need to allocate spaces for commercial use, particularly in areas where the land cost is too high simply for residential. We need to start thinking of land development, particularly in highly urbanized areas, not simply through flat, but perhaps through vertical types of land use plans. The House Resolution 1468 calls on the executive to expedite the designation, disposition, and development of idle government lands as mandated by Republic Act number 11201. This is consistent with the order of President Duterte to cut red tape in government. Congress fully supports the president in this campaign. And in December, we passed Republic Act number 11517, authorizing the president to suspend or waive the requirements to secure permits, licenses, clearances, or certifications, particularly for sectors like housing. Regulatory processes under the Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development are covered by this new law. This is a relief, I hope, for all of you here. Hindi na aabutan ng taon-taon ang pagpoproseso ng mga dokumento para magpatayo ng condominium, apartment complex, or subdivision. However, this is a power given to the president only within the constraints of the pandemic time. So I would urge you all to take advantage, in conjunction, of course, with the Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development, to expedite, uh, as part of the Build program and even the Balik Probinsya program of the government, uh, designing integrated townships for particularly for low income families that can provide them with the kind of dignified and adequate, safe and resilient housing that they need. The committee is also working hard to pass another priority of the president, the housing financing bill that will ensure that there is sufficient funding for housing production through direct housing production, subsidies, loans, and securitization of mortgages, and trying to combine all of these in a much more streamlined process. I was designated as the chairperson of the technical working group to produce a substitute bill for the housing finance. But since I was elected as committee chairperson, the task will pass on to Congressman John Ray Tiangco of Navotas. I expect that OSHDAP will actively participate in the discussions of the TWG. Kailangan po namin ng expertise ninyo sa mga usaping ito. Together, I hope that we all can push and lobby for homes for each Filipino family. For the homes for each Filipino family is the bedrock of Ambisyon Natin 2040, where we all enjoy a strongly rooted, comfortable, and secure life, kung saan tayong lahat ay merong matatag, maginhawa, at panatag na buhay. Umpisa po lahat yon sa ating pamamahay, sa ating household, sa ating pamilya. OSHDAP has always been a reliable partner of the Committee on Housing and Urban Development, even under the chairmanship of my brother, Congressman Alvi Benitez, who was one of the principal authors of the bill that created the Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development, as well as of my immediate predecessor, now Deputy Speaker Strike Revilla of Cavite. I expect no less, but perhaps the same type of partnership from you folks with me and the committee now, to collaborate with the committee to fulfill the fundamental human right to adequate housing as a manifestation of the poor's right to the city. As you may all know, malapit sa puso ng aming pamilya ang usapin ng pabahay. It was the late Senator Helena Benitez, actually, who articulated the concept of human settlements from the United Nations Conference on the Human Environment in Stockholm, Sweden in 1972 that led to the first Habitat Conference in Vancouver. She brought back the concept of human settlements to the Philippines, and it was my father, the late Deputy Minister Jolly Benitez, who believed that development should have a face and an address specific to the household and to the family unit. And the challenge is now on us, together, to concretize this principle in our work in Congress. Sana naman po maaasahan namin ang tulong ng OSHDAP para dito. So let's work together to ensure that development benefits our people, that housing and settlements development integrate necessary infrastructure and access to basic necessities to address fundamental human needs. Because after all, development should be higit sa lahat para sa tao. Maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat, and I await eagerly the open forum for questions and suggestions from OSHDAP on how we might move forward in our common advocacy of a house and a home for every Filipino family. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman Kiko Benitez. That's a very, I think, insightful message from you. Rest assured that OSHDAP will be, or as it always is, active in participating in all technical working groups, hearings, or deliberations on all the bills being prioritized by the committee. And now we'll move forward to our open forum. The forum will be moderated or facilitated by no less than our chairman of the board, Mr. Mars Mendoza. We'll also ask our national president, Gino Olivares, to keep his camera open to help us facilitate the discussion. And for all those participating or for the audience, please feel free to ask questions. You may type in your questions in the chat box. You may also use the raise hand function of the Zoom app, so we can personally recognize you and you can ask your questions also personally. You may, before asking questions, kindly state your name, affiliation, and company organization. Please observe proper decorum or courtesy to our good Congressman Kiko Benitez. We'll turn over the floor to our chairman of the board, Mars Mendoza, who will moderate the open forum. Sir Mars?
Yeah, good afternoon, Congressman Kiko. And we do appreciate your being a guest here in our housing talks, considering the very busy sessions and agenda already going on in Congress. No, for the benefit of those in the forum, the third district of Negros Occidental is a very well planned settlements area. Of course, it is adjacent to Bacolod, and to those who have been there, the cities of Talisay and Silay should be considered also as Metro Bacolod and even Victorias, although quite far, Congressman Benitez. No, but well, Bacolod is a well-planned city, and more so with the district of Congressman Kiko. Just to start, no, maybe I'd just like to acknowledge, without naming names, of course, that there's quite a good number of participants in this forum. We have non-government organizations here, NGOs. We have the media. Well, I have invited three from the academy, and I think they should be here either in the room or at Facebook. So we have three doctors, not necessarily treating COVID. There's a fourth one in Congressman Benitez. Of course, we have participants from the LGUs. No, so this is a very good assemblage of stakeholders in the housing industry. So let us take this opportunity to ask questions to those who are in the room, as well as those who are in Facebook or YouTube through the chat box. Just to start, Congressman Benitez, of course, the stakeholders might want to have some updates on two bills, which are, I think, both on discussions with the Senate. These are the amendments to the Anti-Money Laundering Act, RA 9160, and the Corporate Recovery and Tax Incentives for Enterprises Act. The Anti-Money Laundering Act is very important for the industry because a good number, quite a very good number of would-be homeowners are overseas contract workers, and remittances are, of course, their way of sending the down payment as well as the amortizations. No, so of course, for Create, we want to see the tax incentives, of course, impact positively on the industry. So siguro just to start, Congressman Kiko, may we have some updates on these two bills?
Sure. The House already approved the amendments of the AMLA bill and ratified the BICAM report. No, so that's already done as far as we're concerned. I think the AMLA bill has a provision naman for reporting primarily more than anything else. So to the extent that remittances go through more or less formal banking channels, I don't necessarily think that the AMLA as revised would impact negatively, or at least it shouldn't. It's a reporting bill more than anything else. No, I think part of the anxiety was the level of reporting is going to be quite heavy because of the bracketing of when reports are triggered for the anti-money laundering commission. At any case, that's already been ratified. The BICAM report has already been ratified for the AMLA. For CREATE, there is an ongoing BICAM discussion between the House and the Senate. There is a provision in the, I believe, I know it's in the Senate version, and I think it's also in the House version, that the VAT exemption for housing of a certain cap be extended, because I think that exemption lapsed last December 2020. I don't think that provision is going to be changed. So I think it will pass through in the BICAM discussions as well. But like all, I'll have to admit, like all BICAM discussions to do with Congress, you don't know what will emerge on the other side until the report is actually ratified on the floor. But I don't see any major shakeup in terms of the VAT exemption that I think ought to help the housing industry as a whole nationally. Is that sufficient, Mr. Mendoza, as a response to your two questions? So the AMLA is the BICAM report has been ratified, so that's just basically going to be sent back to Malacanang now for the president's signature. The CREATE bill is undergoing a BICAM talks now to match the Senate version with the House version. I think they have a few discrepancies between the two versions, but I don't think that the housing provisions within CREATE are controversial, right? I think both the lower and the upper house would probably stand by the exemption extension for VAT for socialized housing specifically.
Yeah,
But
thank you very much for that. That's a big relief to all of the participants here. Because what is happening, Congressman, is
Yes, sir.
some developers are postponing booking the sales, until
Yes.
such time as
The CREATE is
BICAM
signed.
is resolved.
Yes,
It's a matter of booking.
understandably. So it's also no. I mean, I'll be frank. I say that because that's what I've seen and heard from my colleagues here. But until the BICAM report is signed, we don't really know what will emerge on the other side of the process, right? But I'm quite hopeful that the housing exemptions will be retained.
Yeah, thank you very much. And we look forward to really the BICAM approving and the President approving the bill into law.
Signing it, yes.
Yeah. Yun pong mga ibang measures naman. For example, can we have more information on the rental subsidy? Because OSHDP is promoting rental as a mode of, aside from ownership, which we feel at this point in time ownership might not be available to the whole population, no? And of course, as in the experience of other countries, for example, Germany has a very high rental vis-a-vis ownership, no?
Yeah.
And we feel that I think for the lowest level of the population, the deciles, no, rental might be a good alternative in the sense that it is not the final mode of acquiring a house. In other words, if we take away the land as a factor in the computations, no, the house and lot would be more affordable, and so many in the first and second deciles of our society would probably want to opt for rental, and then as their incomes move up in the future, then they can go to ownership housing. Can we have your views on rental,
Yeah. So
Congressman?
the status is that the substitute bill is in the process of being finalized, no, and I think it's soon going to be approved by the committee and then referred to the plenary floor for second reading, where amendments will actually probably be argued vociferously. No, the way the bill is currently written, honestly, it is a designed by Congressman Belmonte as a halfway measure, particularly for those that are already being resettled. So the premise of the law is that the national government still has the obligation to provide housing for the informal settler families, and that the problem is, in the meantime, while their units in city ideally or on site are not ready, how do they survive, no, the rental market? So it's a kind of rental subsidy primarily for informal settlers uh, while waiting for the housing units that the NHA, for example, might be providing to them. However, I think you're absolutely right that aside from that, there is a demographic, particularly in NCR, that will require a more robust uh, rental market subsidy program. No, that's not, to my knowledge, part of the current form of the bill. No, so if Mr. Mendoza, kung meron kayong ideas on how to best include that, padala niyo sir sa office namin para mapag-usapan on the plenary floor. We're
Yeah,
certainly
we would.
open to listen
Yeah,
to
we
that.
would like to really interface with your committee. No, we see really a good partnership or interaction, and we've always had that with your committee in the past. And well, we love that, considering that we just have about 16 months to go, and we have to maybe file
Yes.
bills as soon as possible para humabol.
Yes, sir. No, so if you have if I think what we can do is certainly the committee can send your organization, sir, the draft bill, no, and if you wish to provide, further provisions or further language, um, it would be great to hear it. No, I know that the Department itself of Human Settlements and Urban Development, it actually is part of its charter to have rental housing and or rent to own housing programs and so on, but they haven't really activated it yet. So this, even though it's already part of the law that they are enabled to do that, the current rental subsidy program bill, maybe if there are suggestions on how to tweak it to address precisely the demographics that you're talking about, and thereby ease, no, the pressure on the housing sector, um, for ownership, that would be great. One of the other option that is in the law, sorry, I should correct myself a little bit, is to allow LGUs specifically to have a rental housing program for their own citizens, right? So that the cost to them is not so high. They can recoup it over time, over a long period of time perhaps, but still recuperable. Where the informal settlers, as they enter the formal market system, and their capacity to earn increases, then they can shift to home ownership. May option na ganun, sir, as well within the current rental subsidy bill in the committee.
Well, maganda ho yung 2 points na binring up nyo. No? Number one, the law creating the Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development, as crafted by your brother, and the Senate, no, was really very good. It has a lot of new provisions. I would even say game-changing provisions. But just to update you on the status of the Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development, ngayon lang po napuno yung ano nila, no, yung USEC, no. Just last week, the two other USECs, undersecretaries were appointed, and then there was one ASEC that was appointed. But a lot of even the regional directors and the directors at the main office, national office, are just OICs, no? And our concern in the private sector is there are a lot of provisions in the new law, very good, no? But wala hong nag-handle pa. I think, for example, there is a provision on the inventory of idle government lands. No?
Yes.
Yun ho sana ang magandang pagkunan ng ating mga bagong housing units. And for example, yung sinasabi po nyo na ano, maganda po yun, no? Yung sa LGUs, no? We have always felt that the LGU could be more proactive in providing housing. And maybe the law was a good start on possible tripartite partnership between the national government, the local government, and the private and NGO sector. So, kaso po, wala rin po masyadong umaasikaso pa nito. So, what has happened basically is yung bago pong DSUD is para pa ring HADSI. In other words, hindi pa siya yung parang sabihin natin line department, as in the case of maybe agriculture or education or even national defense.
So, sir, there is another law, sir, Mr. Mendoza. Sorry to interrupt you. No, they've only hired, I think, from the last conversation I had with Secretary Del Rosario, they've only hired around 27% of their plantilla positions. So they are undercapacitated at the moment, no, in terms of hiring. So that's going to keep going. I wanted to say there is in fact a bill currently being discussed as part of the TWG, and I believe it's on Thursday or tomorrow. The TWG either tomorrow or on Thursday is meeting to discuss the human settlements officer in LGUs or in different provinces. No, to push, in fact, the personnel and the spread so that the line agency, like the other agencies, so the Department of Human Settlements will be like the other line agencies with clear plantilla positions all the way down. But again, that will take time for them to fill, as you've pointed out. The last that I wanted to say is that precisely what you just said is why I filed House Resolution 1468. No, one of the things that the resolution demands is precisely the National Registry of Idle Government Lands to be activated as part of a national housing plan. No, that will include, hopefully, as part of the inquiry for the resolution, mechanisms to increase public-private partnerships with regards to housing, whether it's a tripartite with NGOs, private sector and LGUs, or it will be national government and so on. That's all part of the envisioned result of the resolution. So I think it's tomorrow yung local human settlements officers and local housing boards, TWG, at 1 o'clock. I'm hoping you were invited and will.
Yes, we are attending.
Good. That's being chaired by Congresswoman Aguinaldo of Bahay.
Maganda po yun.
So,
and,
right up our alley.
Maganda po magkaroon talaga tayo ng closer relationship because the private sector can also lobby in terms of maybe having our sector heard in this case, because as stakeholders, well,
absolutely,
we do interaction with them almost every day. And so we can feel whatever is lacking, and this is something that we can report to you. Our president,
Yes,
Gino,
sir. Thank you very much.
Yes.
some clarifications.
For the rental housing again, I'd just like to add maybe studying also the housing vouchers. So for the people who will be needing, it will be quick faster if ever. No need to produce houses because some of the housing are available already.
Sorry. Can you repeat that, Gino? The
uh,
last part.
the housing vouchers for rental.
Ah, for rental subsidies. Yeah, that was also discussed, and I think that the law allows for that. But the precise mechanism, I don't think has yet been how do I put it, decided on how to do it. But there is it is in the law that is part of the program that they need to explore, so that people might have the option to choose, no, where to go and so on. But yes, it is a kind of voucher program that's being considered. But there are no guidelines yet. Kasi hindi pa naman actually natatapos yung batas, no. But Gino, that is part of the law.
Thank you, Congressman. It another also in subsidies, are other subsidies coming out or incentives for maybe a Bayanihan Act 3 for housing in the industry?
Actually, there are various measures. I think that they've been passed in the House, actually. So there's a Cures Act, for example, that's part of the Build. And housing is one of the components in it that's mentioned as a kind of construction and infra build program, no, that has its own ripple effect in terms of the economy. I think that one is stuck in the Senate. I don't know if the Senate is even hearing it yet at this stage, but I believe it's finished in the House. Aside from that, there are current discussions about whether or not a Bayanihan 3 law is necessary, because there are fears still about the underspending of stimulus for the economy. But that has not yet gained much traction yet, I think, in the lower house. So it's really the cures that's been passed by the lower house. There's discussion on a Bayanihan 3, but wala pa akong nakikitang concrete, no. Nag-file si Congresswoman Kimbo, for example. So we'll see what happens to that. Gino, do you mind if I can just read what Jessica
Yes.
Soto has on
Yes.
the chat?
Yes. I was going to read it.
How are you considering a real public, private, and people partnership? The communities are as much a major stakeholder and not just an end user. While we promote cooperative housing in our organization, we believe that we need the private and public sector to make our housing projects successful. We have tried different modalities, but as the new urban agenda says, we need the people, private, and public partnerships genuinely. The current law proposed for the on-site, in-city, and near-city will still require a people's consultation and a people's plan, no, within which the community has to participate in constructing the people's plan. It's already included in the charter, and so how I find that, I think, even if, for example, let's imagine a very expensive land in what really would be expensive land in Manila, the city of Manila, right? And you are now going to have an on-site development that is mixed use development on that site, and a huge component of which will be handed back as units, maybe on a high rise, to the original residents, right? The whole process, Jessica, would require that the community be part of the planning, the relocation and resettlement plan, all the intermediary steps, as well as how they might benefit from the eventual mixed use development on that site. And if it's not on that site, it will be hopefully a closed site, so they're not deprived of their livelihood and so on. So it's in the law that the public-private partnership, for example, in this case, perhaps with the LGU of Manila, it will still require a people's plan. Yeah. Any other questions? I hope that
Yeah. See, Habitat for Humanity also has the same question along the lines of what Gino asked. No? Lala Valdelovar. With the COVID-19 pandemic that has affected the economy and the real estate sector, what are the measures that you think the government should implement to drive the production of socialized housing units?
I think it ought to do and what I think Congress can do are not necessarily the same things. No, this is my own personal ideas. You cannot have a build without a housing and township planning component. I cannot believe that you can have a Balik Probinsya program of any kind that will be successful without a housing component as well. No, so there is, I think, some funding put into these programs. They need to be made to interface, with a more comprehensive national housing program plan. Because at the end of the day, as usual, as we all know, it really is a budgetary problem. No, so I think when you really have a national housing plan, you can then figure out how much contribution, for example, the private sector might make in terms of production for the units, and so on. How you might want to tweak financing, right? The securitization and the secondary mortgage markets and so on and so forth. All of these, I think, are on the table, and truly, that was the motivation behind the resolution, that I filed to fast track all of this, because we do need it for economic recovery as well, right? So that the economic conditions now becomes a opportunity to fast track our response to the backlog in our national need for homes and houses.
Mr. Chair, Mr. President, can I ask some questions?
Sure. Yeah, you have the
Congressman?
Yes, sir. Who is speaking?
This is Jefferson Bongat po.
Sure. Go ahead.
You mentioned, you just recently mentioned about budget. That is one of the concerns of the agencies for a long time. They should have very small budget. But during I'm not sure if we can help or you can do anything, that one of the things that OSHDP is lobbying that housing should also be treated as an infrastructure project, because for the longest time, housing has been treated as a social issue. But now with the department, if housing can be treated like an infrastructure project, because we have talked to many LGU city mayors, problema din nila budget eh. So if the congressmen in Congress can treat housing as an infrastructure, then maybe additional budget can be channeled through the department directly to the LGU. And I think the LGU would be happy, and they know what to do with their informal settlers, housing issues. Because the mayors and the congressmen know their district very well, rather than just relying on NHA. Tama po ba? Ano
Tama.
pong reaction?
Tama. So, I mean, as I've been saying, in the Cures Act that was filed by El Rey Villafuerte, for example, right? It's very clear that housing has its own multiplier effect for the economy and should be treated like a build or infrastructure, as you might with roads and so on, which is the usual argument for increased government spending. That's the first response, Jefferson. So to say that there is a slow but and growing though awareness that the housing sector is actually quite crucial, no, for a jump starting or re-jump starting the economy, no, that it really should be part of any discussion of build. The second that you pointed out was the LGUs themselves, no. Uh, Again, we're back to a kind of chicken and egg that Mr. Mendoza has already pointed out. Very small percentage really have local shelter plans, which would be the basis of the Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development stepping in and helping, you know, the LGUs. Having said that, the finance bill, the housing finance bill, is meant to provide greater flexibility, you know, for financing of housing developments in general. Again, this is not to make an excuse for the Human Settlements Department at this stage, because that's not really my job. But to say that I think everybody is aware now of these issues. The local governments, if they had a local shelter plan, there are now increases in access to financing, and not just through NHA, but through human settlements itself, as well as the finance sector. At least when that bill is finished in the committee, that's now, it's being deliberated now, as I said, by Congressman Tiangco of Navotas. No, I think those what would you call them, anchor points, right, or fulcrum points, need to be taken all together. Kasi you won't solve it. The immensity of the problem, no, is such that you won't solve it through a single intervention. All of these things need to be done, and they needed to be done 10 years ago, 15 years ago, right? So we're behind. And the department has to speed up in terms of its capacitating itself, in terms of its supposedly capacitating LGUs to create the kind of shelter plans, and to further facilitate, and they're open to do it, right? Further facilitate the PPP that I'd already mentioned before. That will redound in the end to the local economy, no? If the housing sector is alive to address their own informal settlers. And I'm saying this not only about NCR, no, but even in the provincial level outside of Metro Manila, we do have a lot of informal settlers living along riverbanks and so on, where they really shouldn't be, and therefore need to be resettled elsewhere.
Congressman, thank you. No, I think you really nailed what you said issue that housing is, you have to tackle it holistically and all together. That's what we've been trying to remind DSUD, that before they issue policies, they think it consulted over.
Yes.
Kasi minsan they just issue policy because they say we are here to protect the buyers, but one small policy can delay a project for almost 2 years. Like
Correct.
what happened previously. One single order delayed all of our projects for 2 years. So you nailed exactly our point. So,
Yeah, no,
sir,
and it's just to remind everyone, no, the name of the department is not the housing department. The name of the department is Human Settlements and Urban Development, which is why an approach that simply tries to tweak, you know, housing per se, to be frank, is going to be insufficient. No, it doesn't have the sense of the whole of the issue of settlements. Sorry.
Agree, sir. Agree, sir. Sir, my second point is, sir, as mentioned by the president, their number one priority right now is the National Land Use Act.
Yes.
But our association and other associations also is concerned that the version passed in the Congress is not really the what you could say genuine land use act, because as we checked last time, it is more of a agricultural protection act. It's still not yet been amended. I think that you still adopt it yata, no, based on your existing rules. Pag pumasa na, you adopt it. That's why we've been talking to NEDA and other na maybe you want to reconsider the Naluma or the Lupa passed in the Congress version, because it is primarily a protection land use act. That's how we see it. O yun lang po yung ano namin doon.
Sige, sir.
If yun nakarating na po kayo.
But actually, hindi pa napapasa yung Land Use Act na yan eh. Kasi I think there are also issues with it in the Senate. And I think sa totoo lang, Jefferson, I think mas madaling kausapin ng lower house with regards to the Land Use Act kaysa Senado. So that might be issue.
Sige, sir. We have our position specifically for that. We can send it to you na you might if you have time po, you might want to look at it, di ba? Our position on the national land use.
Sure.
We support it naman.
Sure.
Not lang
Sure.
the version that is passed already. Yun lang po. Thank you po.
Sige. Thank you. Anything else?
Yeah, Congressman. Tumaas na naman po ang presyo ng bakal, no? And malaki ang tinaas this few weeks, no? Now, this is very relevant kasi we are asking DSUD for an increase in housing price ceilings for socialized housing. Kasi taas ng taas po yung presyo ng Roland.
Okay.
Hindi naman natin makontrol yung Roland. Ngayon, pati raw materials tumataas. I don't know if we can ask DSUD to probably accelerate their kasi dapat last year pa to yung there is a 2-year review for housing price ceilings, but up to now DSUD has not convened the committee that will study the increase in housing price ceilings for socialized housing, and this is something that is affecting production, no? Tapos dun sa steel naman po, baka pwede ang DTI na may siguro price protection sa basic materials for socialized and mass housing.
So sinusulat ko, sir, ha. So don't I'm listening to you.
Yeah, importante kasi po kasi the COVID has brought a lot of increases in the construction of houses. For example, now we have to build facilities for our workers, for example. And one of the products of the COVID epidemic is a lot of workers working in Metro Manila who chose to go back to the provinces for one reason or another. Maybe their families don't want them to go back to Metro Manila, have not come back. And this has caused some upward pressure on the quantity or the amount of laborers that is available for mass housing.
Yeah.
Not to mention, of course, that we are also competing with the big ticket projects of DOTR and DPWH.
Sorry. So your costs are going up consequently.
Yeah, mataas.
Sige, sir. We will take that into advisement. Noted po 'yan. I'll confess to you, sir, para straight talk. Baka mas madali yung kausapin ng DSUD na i-review nila yung ceiling. rather than talking to DTI or figuring out how to handle the labor shortage. But we will take that into advisement and think about it. If
Thank you
there are
po.
anything
Thank you.
specific pa that you can convey.
There is one point po, Congressman. This was this was
Yes,
uh,
sir.
this was advanced by one of your colleagues, no, si Congressman Stella Kimbo, when she guested in our housing talks, which is basically one of the possible, probable solutions to housing finance and housing funding shortage is to include housing in the menu of the congressman's possible projects.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this, Congressman Kiko?
I would say absolutely yes. I would say absolutely yes. The again, the problem is going to be budget, diba? So,
Yes.
however, directing uh, how do I say it? I guess directing DBM to allow that housing projects be made part of the menu of DPWH's district allocations, for example, and so on, may not be a bad idea. Although the difficulty there is really the interface between some place like DPWH and NHA, right? And this should that would be the knot, I suppose, that we need to untangle. But certainly, I think on principle, I would say yes. Although realizing that might be more tricky, since housing is really NHA and the shoulds what mandate, no, and the housing production at the moment is not even within human settlements, it's really with NHA. So yun ang part of the problem at the moment. Pero may solusyon yan siguro. Tanungin namin, sir, si Congresswoman Kimbo. She doesn't usually give a suggestion if she doesn't have an answer to all the obstacles along the way. So I will ask her what she suggests, how it can be done.
Yeah, thank you for
But
that.
yes, on principle, I agree.
Sir
Thank you
Mars,
for that. We have a supporter.
Sir Mars, our member, Mr. Fernand Imperial has a question.
Yeah. Good afternoon, Congressman Kimbo. Thank you for
Benitez.
Benitez po.
for everything. Hello.
Benitez.
Hi.
Congressman
Sorry.
Kiko
Congressman,
Benitez.
sorry,
That's
Congressman
okay.
Benitez. Yeah. Regarding the work permits and licenses for housing development, we have we have an independent body that does research on that, and the documents that need to be submitted are over 370. Is there a way that we can reduce that?
Oh, yeah, I had started by saying, no, that number one, there is an ARTA study going on now, the Commission on Anti-Red Tape, no, in to find ways to streamline that. That would be a longer term solution. In the meantime, right now, because of the pandemic, the president has been given special powers to waive many of the permitting processes. So if you have suggestions on how to streamline that, send it also to our office so that we can surely try to push and lobby for it further. Everybody understands its needs. So I think now is the time to push it, and hopefully it becomes the norm moving forward in some form or another.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for that. Uh, I'm currently serving as a city councilor. Um, maybe
In
and
which city, sir?
as a city councilor, Legazpi City po, honorable congressman.
Legazpi.
Yes. Uh, I also I enjoin my my colleagues in feeling that maybe the creation of local housing boards in the municipality might further delay the streamlining process. Is that something you can comment on?
Um, huh. The if the problem kasi with creating another unit like a local housing board. Tomorrow is the discussion, no? I think on this proposal. So we can wait for how it might unfold in the TWG tomorrow. But creating a new layer of bureaucracy on the one hand can in fact delay the process, but on the other hand, in theory at least, ought to mitigate politics, no, and provide for a certain kind of continuity. So I would wait myself to hear what the TWG will come up with, and Congresswoman Aguinaldo, um, so that there's attention paid, 'di ba? Kasi on the one hand, you don't want the extra layer of bureaucracy because bakit lalong tumagal. On the other hand, you want to make sure that there's someone na nakatutok para may sustainability and may longer term continuity ang sector, di ba? So how you balance those two, I think, might very well be the topic. Kasi both are possible, no? So the way in the law is crafted kung sakali. Does that address your question, Mr. Imperial, Counselor?
Yes, thank you very much, Congressman. I mean, I'm willing to accept an added layer of bureaucracy if the 370 documents are reduced. So I mean, thank you very much for
Exactly.
your.
Exactly. 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 Thank you.
Congressman,
Any other questions? Yes,
Congressman, there
sir.
is a
Yes, Mr.
question
Mendoza now.
from Anthony
Mhm.
Gilbert Antitiera from the city government of Imus. This is very general, but it would be good for us to hear your take on this. What would be the effect of COVID-19 in real estate industry? And this is a good question. Do we see a bounce back recovery this 2021?
Oh, big question. Um, I would say yes, we probably will, but that's partly because things have gotten bad, so we can only move forward at this stage. No, I think I think 2021 will have some kind of bounce. Just don't know how big, because I think the economy will continue to slowly open up. By the end of 2021, vaccines will be here. Uh, that's going to help further. So I'm quite hopeful that 2021 will be better than 2020. But my greater concern is that the pandemic, you know, showed us, I think, many of the weaknesses in our systems, and therefore it's an opportunity for us to correct those as much as we can. No, as I said, there's an opportunity now to try to really push for the reforms that has been needed, we are resetting the economy. So we should try to build back the economy better than we did before the pandemic, right? So there's an opportunity there, and I'd rather look at that opportunity, and if we can clearly take advantage of those, then the bounce back will be probably better or bigger than otherwise. But really, there is, I think, at this stage, no other place to go but up. no? And I think construction is slowly naman making its way back, at least certainly in the provinces, no?
Thank you for that. We have to be optimistic.
It's all we have left.
No, we still have Bright Light Productions.
Well, okay. That's
Maybe
a
some
different
of our
type of
audience would
optimism.
want to get some kind of mileage. Congressman, yeah, regarding the question before, no, there is a mandatory review, 2-year review after the
Yeah.
passage of the new Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development. One of the jokes going around is, well, it's very much human settlements and very little urban development.
Urban development. Tama.
But
Tama
anyway,
ho kayo dyan.
but anyway, maybe we should take advantage of this mandatory review, considering that we're now seeing a lot of the possible weaknesses,
Yeah.
and possible improvements that we can make. And for example, well, we are there right at the public hearings and up to the BICAM of the Department of Human Settlements. And of course, one of the basic, it's a structural problem, which I don't know if we can resolve, or would we, what is your take on this? This is the fact that a lot of the agencies are still attached agencies, so to speak, no, in open and
Yeah.
close quotation. For example, NHA, as you say, is
Like NHA.
still has its own charter. Pag-ibig has its own
Yeah.
charter. And these are the two most
Yeah.
important functions of the department: production and finance. No, I don't know if there are bills pending in the House, but there used to be bills on the, a housing bank even. No,
Yes.
I don't know if Secretary Dominguez is going to be happy about that. I know he's not happy with all of these, banks that cater to a specific sector. But nonetheless, what is your take on the charters of NHA and Pag-ibig? Are these something that is also up for review?
Yes. The answer is yes. Okay, so the first your comment that it's mostly housing, very little anong tawag mo nito, human settlements, and even less urban development, no?
Yeah.
I that's also going to be part of the committee's work to try to what bolster and strengthen the planning and urban development aspect of the mandate of the department. So currently, already the NHA has approached us because there is a discussion of a new charter. In fact, they're proposing a bill, to renew their charter, because they seem to think their charter will lapse in 3 years or so, or 4 years. So there will be a review whether or not to abolish, to merge, etc. No, and it will probably start with NHA because they're the ones that most recently have mentioned the need for a bill to renew their charter. Any renewal of any charter will require a appraisal of its performance, no? And its necessity, whether it should be open to abolishing it and so on, or merging it with the department. So that's still on the table, sir. Wala pang real resolution yan. The other one is the Socialized Housing Finance Corporation, no, is also, I think, has a bill. This one, I think, has been filed for its charter as well. That's going to be part and parcel of the discussion with regards to the housing finance bill that was filed, actually both in the Senate and in the lower house. That's going to be the committee's work for the next, I don't know how many months, probably. until May. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good to hear. We have a full 16 months to, a busy 16 months to go.
Very busy. Very busy. So
Yeah,
meron pa, sir?
Jeremy?
I just realized
Yes.
they're now taking attendance on the plenary.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
actually have a session.
Ano na lang, Mr. Chair,
Yeah, Jeff.
I'd like to just say something na lang to the good congressman.
Sige, Jeff.
Kong,
Yes,
you
sir.
are second generation na in your family, no, in the Congress and also in housing. Like me and my si Gino, we are second generation also in this endeavor in socialized housing. Sana itong problema sa housing tapusin na natin sa generation natin. Huwag na natin paabutin sa third generation pa. Yun lang po.
Yes, sir. Naghahanap tayo lahat ng solusyon para mapabilis. I think, thankfully, my brother was able to file for the department. So the first step was putting all of these things under one umbrella at least, so that the way the ecosystem was originally designed through the Ministry of Human Settlements at least, can again function. No? Because without the umbrella of the department, each of the agencies went their own way, and sometimes at cross purposes, and at the expense of efficiency or truly addressing the problem. So the first step, sir, is really the department. They are in fact slow, but at least they're there. And so what we might do is move forward in terms of how to even make them more effective in their implementation of their mandate. And sana nga. So if you have a way to think of how we might, 3 years or so, create 6 million units of socialized housing, sir, we are open to hear it.
Yes, sir. We have some suggestions po, and we will meet with you po to discuss them. Thank you po.
Sige. Thank you.
Yeah. Jerwin?
Yes. So there, before that has been a very fruitful conversation or discussion. I think it's time to wrap up the discussion. Before the formal closing remarks from our chairman of the board, may we ask for the final remarks, maybe from Kong Kiko Benitez? Any final remarks, sir?
No, so thank you very much for this opportunity to meet with you. I'm sure it's going to be the first of many. I look forward to working closely with OSHDP. We are in an advocacy together, and I think I've said before, the issue is so multi-pronged that there's no one single intervention that will be sufficient. So it is only by working together, I think, that we can find a sustainable solution to really the rights of people to the city. So more power po sa inyo.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Yes, and before we actually finally close this meeting, may I ask everyone to please turn on your camera. We'll have a virtual crowd chat with everyone still remaining in the participants. We'll have 4 panels this time. Just 4 shots. Since you don't know in what gallery you're in, just smile in every shot. So please turn on your camera. I think the first gallery is ready. Everyone, count through 1, 2, 3, go. Okay. Next, second gallery. Okay, there's someone turning on his camera. Okay, 1, 2, 3, go. Third one. 1, 2, 3, go. And last one. 1, 2, 3, go. All right. So there, I think to formally close this program, may I call on again our chairman of the board, Mr. Mars Mendoza, to give his final or closing remarks. Mr. Mars?
Yeah, good afternoon again. I have the privilege to formally close OSHDP's inaugural online forum for 2021. Thanks to all of you. We have a record number of participants that really showed interest for this topic and for our guest. Thank you to our special guest, Honorable Chairman Kiko Benitez, as well as to all our members, friends, supporters, and stakeholders in the housing industry. If we are to assure continuity and value, institutional memory in the housing narrative in a country, we are reasonably assured by the leadership of Chairman Benitez in the Housing and Urban Development Committee of the House of Representatives. Continuity, that is our ardent wish for the country's real estate and housing sector, and of course, everyone's efforts to address our country's housing needs. With that, I wish to close our online forum for today with a wish for everyone's safety. We hope to see you all again in our next Housing Talks for OSHDP. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman Kiko.
Sige sir, I'm going to the plenary na ha.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you
sir.
po.
Thank you.
Thank
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 you.
you po.
I look
Thank
forward to
you.
hearing from you.